Yeah, I see you in the back of the class not raising your hand, and I'm coming for you. Hey everyone, I got a message recently from a teacher in Washington named Ryan that I want to talk about in today's vlog because I think it's something that we all struggle with, and that is class participation. So here's what Ryan wrote to me. I'm going to read it here. It says, I was wondering if any of your videos cover class participation. I'm constantly running into the issue of trying to motivate all kids to participate rather than just the usual suspects. Thanks, Ryan. Oh, Ryan, I am right there with you. And if I could crack the code of 100% engagement 100% of the time from all of our kids, then I could just, I could retire and rest easy and just like spread the magical secret to the land, because I haven't found it. It's been 20 years I've been in the classroom, and I've tried tons of different things, and I've gotten closer to full engagement than early in my career for sure. But even now, I still get a small percentage of kids that I just think of as like the floaters, the drifter kids. They just, they'll answer when called directly upon, but they never really volunteer. And even when I do call on them, it can be like painful waiting for them to come up with a response. So just know that this is something that we all struggle with. I don't even know if 100% engagement is possible. I mean, I'm not everyone's favorite flavor. Do you know what I mean? Like early in my career, I was like, I want all the students to like me and engage in my class, and I want my class to be their favorite class. And that's just not possible. Like I can be annoying. Like I'm too much for some people. Some kids love my class and they're like, it's awesome. And other kids are like, oh, she needs to dial it back. So just, you have to know that you're not going to reach everyone. That doesn't mean we don't try, but you just have to give yourself a break. Like do the best you can, reach out. I'm going to talk about some practical things you can do to kind of increase the engagement. But I figure if I can get to like 98% engagement, like that's a super win. I'd say that the floater kids, the drifter kids are about 2% of my population. And on days when I'm frustrated with them, I think of them as just like future cubicle workers. They're going to clock in and clock out at their jobs, and that's going to be their life. And maybe they'll find passion in their hobbies or their families, and that's great. Some people do that. Even with 20 time, which I've talked about in other videos, it's the ultimate in self-directed passion project. Do what you want to do, kid, and I will help you achieve it. And even then, I have handful of kids, 2%, sometimes 3% of kids who are just going through the motions. And so you do the best you can to model and inspire and lay the groundwork, and then you let the chips fall where they may. This all, in thinking about your question, Ryan, reminds me of Jack Canfield, a motivational speaker guy. He's got the famous SW, 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 SW. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. And I feel like that in my class. Like there's a line of kids at the desk. If you're not buying what I'm selling, that's okay, because I've got other kids who definitely want my feedback and energy. So keep that in mind as we go. Even somebody with a lot of experience doesn't get full engagement. That being said, there are quite a few things that we can do to try to pull as much of the 98% into our fold as possible. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is engaging curriculum. Is the stuff that we're giving kids interesting? I mean, if something's boring, they're going to be bored and they're just going to check out. They're probably not going to be like, well, they might be super disrespectful. They might just get like irritated and then start being annoying. But generally, they just kind of like slump back and shrink into the surrender of the boring work. Now, not every lesson can be super dynamic and exciting. I get it. Like sometimes we just need to do the grammar, right? But we can make the grammar interesting to them. You can do a funny sentence, or you can put their names in the sentences that you put on the board, that kind of stuff. So you can make curriculum engaging, and just think of when you were a student, or you are a student, like in professional development classes. So we have sat through so many of those classes where it is so boring and completely disconnected from the reality of the day-to-day life stuff that we do in our classrooms that we check out. Right? You start doodling, you start sending dumb messages to your friend, your teacher friend across the auditorium to try to make them laugh. Like you're just bored. And so you're disengaged. And the speaker, I think, would feel that because they haven't given us like good relevant material. So I actually, on the blog, when I answered you over here, I was talking about one that really worked. And there's a guy named Dwayne Habecker who worked with me in Pleasanton Unified, and he was a middle school math teacher. And he did a professional development course that was my all-time #1 favorite one ever. And so what in the world can a high school English teacher get from a middle school math teacher? Inspiration and tools. So he, in this like totally unexpected jewel of professional development, introduced me to flipped classroom lessons, showed me the basics of video tools on how to flip a lecture and how all that worked. So he inspired me. He gave me the tools, showed me some software. EduCreations was the one I started with, and then let me go. And all of us, so there was like a Spanish teacher next to me, and then there was a history teacher, and we were all kicking around ideas about how to flip the curriculum. And by the end of the class, we were well on our way to finishing our first project or our first video. Now, again, I know that we've got a class of 34 teenagers, and we are teaching, state regulated, Common Core curriculum, but there are things we can do to make it more interesting. So I want to just remind yourself of what it was like to be a student, and then try to make things less lame. And that will probably go, I'm not saying you're lame, Ryan, but like there's a lot of boring, like have you, on your prep period, just walk around campus and just kind of like look in windows. There's a lot of bored teenagers out there. It's not just my class or your class. There's a lot of classes that are just kind of boring. So let's think about ways to jazz it up a little bit. Okay, that being said, that leads me to the second point, which is variety. So last week, previous video, I talked about bell ringers and the importance of routine, which is awesome and true. And then also we need variety. So you need routine for the class starter, but then each day in class, I like to mix and match what we're doing. So on, say, Mondays, we might be doing like a think, pair, share, and then a full class debate about some concept or story or some piece of literature or a poem or something like that. Then on Tuesday, I'll break out some stations to reinforce some skills. On Wednesday, I might throw down a video challenge in small groups. On Thursday, I might do a classic Sage on the Stage lecture where I'm delivering with a prezi, and then I have them do a solo writing activity. And then on Friday, we might have a community building quarter trio game and SSR for a quiet kind of end of the week. And then I'm individually conferencing with kids during that reading time. So every day of the week has a different kind of thing going on, and that alleviates boredom, right? Like, I don't know. I've had classes when I was in high school. I'm not going to name her name. There was a history teacher at my high school. I'm not naming names, and all she did every day was lecture. And we had to take our notes. And then the tests were these super detailed, impossible tests that were open note, but you could only pass the class if you had like written down every word she said. It was tedious and exhausting, and I didn't like it. And I thought, ooh, if I ever become a teacher, I'm not gonna do that. So you need to mix it up, right? Add variety to what you're doing. Okay, next up, whenever possible, give kids a menu of options, different ways to show mastery of a standard. So I have a little graphic here, a list for you. So let's say you're teaching Catcher in the Rye to 11th and 12th graders, and you want, as part of what you're doing with that book, to hit Common Core State Standard 4 in the reading of literature, right? So this one says, and I've got it up here for you, determine the meaning of words and phrases as they are used in the text, including figurative and connotative meanings. Analyze the impact of specific word choices on meaning and tone, including words with multiple meanings or language that is particularly fresh, engaging, or beautiful. Wow, I kind of like that. Focusing on language that is fresh, engaging, or beautiful. Now, there's lots of ways kids can demonstrate that they can do that, or to have them dig into it. So you could offer the following choices. So you could say, first up, what you might want to do is create a Venn diagram of at least 20 pieces of slang from the novel, which would be the late 1940s, early 1950s, that Holden or his friends use. And then do a compare contrast in that Venn diagram with 20 pieces of teen language, teen slang today, and that cover the same objects and emotions. Then they'll analyze 3 of the words, like in short paragraphs, a short write-up, explaining what's different about the tone of the 2 different words from 2 different eras that actually mean the same thing. And what creates that difference for the reader? What's the impact? Or another option, you could have them, if they want, write lyrics in Holden Caulfield's voice set to a popular song's background music. And they can find karaoke versions of every song in existence on YouTube. So have them dig there. They write out the song and then they perform it for you, for the teacher, and they give you a written copy of the lyrics so you can follow along. I would not have them perform in front of the whole class. That is a whole different level of scary for kids, but instead just perform for you, for the teacher. And they could even video themselves if they just want to play the video for you. That would be fine too, because I know it's nerve-wracking to sing in front of people. But then after that performance, you, the teacher, and the kid can just talk about some of the vocabulary choices and explain how those words impact the listener, and then explain or talk about how would a modern singer express the same idea? What language would a modern singer use? Or an entirely different option, the kid could create a Quizlet or Kahoot game where players test their ability to match Holden's old-fashioned teen slang with the actual modern-day meaning of the words. Then they would choose, to make it a little bit more rigorous than just building the game, they could rewrite 10 actual sentences from the novel, changing an important word in each sentence, and then give me a paragraph explaining how the new sentences differ in tone or meaning from the original ones. And kids could also then, they could write that up in a paper, or they could do a little presentation in front of the whole class where they have the class play the game, and then they give a quick presentation of 3 of their original sentences and the rewritten sentences explaining the differences. Or they could write a diary entry describing your school day in the voice of Holden Caulfield, and then rewrite that same content in their own voice, and then do a little short paragraph where they compare the differences. How does the tone differ between the 2 pieces of writing? Which writer seems friendlier? Who would you want to actually hang out with? And why? Examine the difference that the language makes on the reader. And then finally, whenever I give a menu of options, I always include one where they can propose their own project. I always add this as the last option because my kids are super creative and they will come up with ideas that I've never even thought of. So whenever possible, I try to find a reason to say yes to those project suggestions. I sometimes have to add an extra little scoop of rigor, a little bit more for them to do to make it balanced and an even amount of work with everything else on the list. But when possible, say yes to the kids as they go. Okay, the next idea is the fun factor. I think I need to make a whole video about how I build a culture of fun and learning in my classroom. And the key is really quarter trios, which I started doing several years ago because life was really drab in my classroom. It was all about drill and kill skills. And it wasn't all about, there wasn't much fun happening. And I was like, I don't want to teach like this. I want to have some fun too. So I've introduced quarter trios, which is a quarter long or a 9-week long ongoing class competition where I assign teams of 3 and I pit them against each other in a series of challenges. So I have a blog post where I have 25 of those challenges. I'll link down there for you guys for that. But maybe I'll do a whole nother video kind of talking more about how I do it and why I do it and the effects and all this stuff. So stay tuned. More videos coming, when I can. And then finally, the last idea that I wanted to share, in order to reach those drifters, those floater kids, they need to feel seen. They need to feel a sense of belonging and that you've noticed them. We all want to feel noticed and important. And so you do that in the most basic way. You talk to the kid. I am so busy in the middle of a class or the beginning or the end of a class that those drifter kids just drift right on out the door. So I will, on my prep period, I'll take a few minutes. I'll go find that kid and he's like in math class. I'll pull him out for just a couple minutes and I'll surprise him because he's not expecting to see me pull him out of his math class. But when I do, I just explain that I've wanted to hear more of his voice in my class. I would love to have him or her participate more than they've been. And I'm wondering, what do they hope to get out of my class? Or what changes would they like to see? And I just pick their brains. And it's really sincere. It's not like a manipulative thing like I do with the class troublemakers. I have an old video about that. It's not a great video, but it is there. It's not to manipulate them. It's really to talk to them. What's going on? What do you need that you're not getting? And then if I can, I try to meet that need. And sometimes just having that conversation with the kid is all it takes to flip them. And suddenly they feel like it's okay to raise their hand in my class, because I feel like they've got something valuable to say. And it's cool to be an introvert. It's cool to be like a kickback kind of kid who just watches and observes. One of my own children is very much that guy. But he's a deep well. Once you start getting him to talk about stuff, oh, he sees and thinks about things at a deeper level, but it takes a little bit of unpacking to get that. And so that drifter kid, that float kid might just be that kind of guy. And once you have noticed him and empowered him and told him you really want to hear what he has to say, he might start talking. He also might not. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes I have that one-on-one and nothing really changes. And sorry for the weird edit, but my audio apparently just dumped out on that last little bit of the last video I was filming. So what I was saying is, sometimes you'll do that reaching out to that floater kid and it won't work. They don't change their ways. They just default to their setting of indifferent teenager. And that is what it is, but at least you tried. And I think the trying is worth the 10-minute investment of my prep period time. And it sometimes works. So I'd say that's a way to kind of reach out and pull that kid into being engaged in what you're doing in class. All right, that is it for me. Okay, teachers, what else can you do? What else can we suggest to Ryan and all of us to make every kid feel involved and engaged in class? Because while we love the Hermione Grangers who are sitting there, ooh, call on me, we also need to hear from Neville Longbottom. And yes, even Draco Malfoy should have a voice in our class. Harry Potter, awesome. All right, that's it for me, you guys. If you have subscribed, I want to say thank you. You're awesome. If you haven't, what are you waiting for? You want to know when I release a video, right? So hit the subscribe button, like the video, tell a friend, leave a comment below or over on the blog so that other teachers can benefit from your wisdom. I cannot do this alone. I need your guys' good ideas in there too. So leave a comment. That would be awesome. All right, that's it for me. I'll be back soon with more teacher ideas, answering questions, and all that good stuff. All right, you guys enjoy what's left of summer. I'll see you soon.